Hey guys, Colin here, hope you're well. Today I'm going to take a super quick look at a really interesting PowerPoint sample. It's interesting because it uses a really different technique to download its malicious payload. Usually where I see Office docs, so like Excel files, docs, PowerPoints, there's some VBA macro code which fires in the background, which either drops or downloads some malicious content. In this case, it uses a completely different method, which I'll show you just now, which is really interesting to be aware of. Also, the malicious file it actually pulls is a JSE file, so this is an encoded JavaScript file, which obviously you don't get to see the contents of unless you can decode it. So I'll show you a technique which you can use to decode JSE files, and then the decoded content is actually obfuscated. So I'll show you some really super simple techniques you can use to deobfuscate some JavaScript really quickly in order for you to extract the malicious network indicators out of the sample as well. So hopefully all within just a few minutes, and you can follow along, and any questions feel free to post a comment. So this is the sample, it's on VT. I'll post a hash in the description. It's a PowerPoint file and I've got it straight here in my Windows 10 VM, and this is cool. So let me open the hover.ppt, and we can see actually, if I just double check with you guys, I'll go into the VBA editor. We can see actually there is no VBA macro code within this file, but what there is here is a hyperlink. And then let me show you the properties of the actual hyperlink, and we can see exactly what it's doing. There's an action setting for a mouse over event, and then once the action fires, it's going to invoke, or at least attempt to invoke, this particular program, which is PowerShell in this particular instance. And let me in this text editor here to show you the full command, so we can see that PowerShell is being invoked. We have invoke expression to then download a file from this particular URL, and this is http cccn.nl/c.php. It's going to then save the contents to ii.jse, and then once that's done, it's going to invoke that item in the temp directory that it's just downloaded. So that's really interesting. So it doesn't actually need to be clicked on. The hyperlink just needs to be hovered over in order for this particular command to be executed. So let's show you that in real time. You can see where my mouse is on the screen here, and if I hover over the hyperlink, I didn't click it, I get this hover event, and yes, PowerPoint tells me that I have a security concern, but most people will probably click enable or whatever. We click enable, we see PowerShell come up in the background, and let me show you in Process Hacker here. We can see PowerShell is fired. I get an error message. That's a little bit weird. I can see WScript is fired, so that probably means that some kind of script is executed. Let me maximize the invocation, and we can see indeed WScript fired as a result of ii.jse being invoked from the temp directory. So that's cool. We've got some kind of download going on, and we can see here in my burp suite that I saw the hit to c.php that 302'd to cccn.nl/2.2, and the response is what looks to be some encoded content. So definitely fitting with our analysis so far of the PowerPoint. We can see in my temp directory I do in fact have ii.jse, and I can edit that actually, and I can see that actually, yeah, indeed, that is the same encoded content that I saw from /2.2. So that's cool. It sounds like I got another error message fire, and in fact this looks to be like a genuine Microsoft Windows error message that says window is undefined at this particular location in the file. So that sounds like that either the bad guys have got a bug in their code, or maybe they intentionally set an error to fire on a certain condition. Because if I just launch Process Hacker again, and then you can see WScript is still running. If I OK the error, it's going to exit. Nothing else is going to happen. There doesn't seem to be any other processes which have spawned either. So maybe the code intentionally bugged out in order to escape analysis or whatever. We'll see. So the JSE file is no good to us in this particular format. Let me just copy and paste it to my desktop, and if you Google, let me flip back to my Chrome, Windows script, let me go back to Windows script decoder. If you Google that, you'll find that there is a GitHub repo which will give you this particular executable, and I'll put the link in the description as well. And this is a decoder for the Windows script encoder engine, so stuff which is encoded from Microsoft's own algorithms into a JSE file can be decoded using this particular file, using this particular executable. So let's run it. We can see it takes an in file and an out file. So we'll feed it ii.jse, and we'll call it ii.out.js. We'll clear the desktop, we'll go back, we can see ii.out, and if we edit it real quick, we can see what looks to be like much more readable JavaScript. And in fact, if I flip back to my Sublime here, Let me go to ii.out. We can see it's actually one line of JavaScript. We can use the plugin in Sublime to prettify that using Command-Shift-H, and we can see that we do in fact get some more kind of pretty JavaScript. And let me just save that as ii.out dash pretty .js, just so we've got a different version of the file. And what we can see here is some variables being defined, and we can see lots of commands saying string from char code, and then the decimal representation of an ASCII value. And we can see actually not just only that in between these particular quotes here, we can see that every single one seems to be added the value 5 as well. So probably to foil some kind of analysis techniques here as well. The bad guys not only have obfuscated their code by splitting strings and also using decimal values to represent ASCII content. We've also having to manually add 5 to every single one of them as well. We can see this is a pretty long file. There's an awful lot of the same technique being used, though. We can see some Unicode characters as well, which just kind of masks the variable names which are being defined, so maybe they give away clues as to what they exactly are. But what we can actually do is write a real quick parser, because we've got an awful lot of the same stuff going on. That's really good for us as analysts, because what we can do is actually use some regular expressions to pull out all of these particular values here between plus and single quotes. We can pull out every single one of these values. We can add 5 to them ourselves, and then we can invoke string from char code, pass them that particular value, and we can see what the bad guys were hiding in the first place as well. So here's the code to parse it out. This is the one I wrote. It only took a few minutes, and I'll share the code with you as well, so you can do whatever you like with it. The regular expression here is it just looks for anything between a plus and in between single quotes, which if you remember here, so we see a plus sign and then we see single quotes, and there's a value which we're interested in between. It's going to match on those. It's going to read the file line by line. And then iterate over the it's going to save all the matches into an array called res, which stands for results, and then it's going to iterate over every result. It's going to add 5 to it, and then it's going to output to the console the product of string from char code of whatever that particular letter would be. So super simple regex and super simple way of just looping over a file. There's probably other ways you can do this, but if we just flip back into my command window here, if I run node parser ii.out pretty.js, we can see, okay, this isn't pretty content and it is all concatenated together, but we do see some key indicators here of what the bad guys were actually trying to hide from us in one super simple string. So we've got what looks to be like a hash. I'd probably go as far to say that's an MD5 hash. We can see wscript enumerator, activex object, all the usual kind of stuff that you would see from a downloader. And we also see key network indicators. So this is the money shot, really. You've now got an IP address that you need to protect your environment against, and make sure that you haven't got any traffic going over port 45,000 to this particular IP as well. We can see the string in the URI has some parameters. We've got like add equals, and we don't know the order in which these variables or values rather are being used within the code. We don't understand the code logic yet. All we've done is spat out what the bad guys were hiding from us, but we get a good feel for the execution flow just by how the script has been written. We see post as well, so the chances are that this is a post request. Maybe you get some content back. We can see -decode. We can see it looks to be some file types being enumerated. We're skipping down a little bit. We can see as well we have some enumeration of running processes. So select star from Win32 process is enumerating all of my running processes. And if we go a little bit further, we can see in these strings here, it's looking index of Procmon, index of Wireshark, index of iExplore, index of Process Hacker, index of VM tools, etc., etc., etc. There's lots of tools here that you would use either in a sandbox or either in a lab environment that I've just been running in VMware. It's looking for processes which are going to be monitoring the malware, probably because it's going to then generate an error and then close and not execute the malware because it's going to evade your analysis. So that's really interesting, and actually that kind of fits in with what we saw before when we got a couple of error message fire on the screen during our behavioral analysis, and it didn't seem to do anything additional. So it seems that it knows it's in a lab, and this is how it knows it's in a lab, because it's looking for all of these processes, most of which I was actually running at the time of my analysis. We can see here as well as looks to be some some other parameters which are probably going to be passed to the C2, and we can see open, set request header, cache control private. So these are things in the headers which are being added to the C2, which the bad guys on the server end are probably going to look for to make sure that this is a genuine kind of infection in order to send back the malicious code. And we can see send from charcode, response text, etc., etc. Write the response body, so all the usual kind of downloader stuff. And then there's some tidying up, what looks to be some tidying up activity down here as well. So it looks like it's going to copy some files over and then delete some files as well, probably in a bid to tidy itself up once the download has occurred. So if you actually took the time to look at the execution flow of the JavaScript and tidied it up a little bit, you would see kind of what I've just described there. And maybe I'll share with you the work that I'm doing on that to tidy the code up a little bit. But actually, to get it to run, I had to kind of patch the code a little bit so it wouldn't look for those running processes. And the binary that it downloaded, we have access to here as well. And this is, let me just skip back. This is this particular executable, and it doesn't seem to do anything particularly interesting, if I'm honest with you. If I run it really quickly, I'll just run it in. Let me start up my procmon, and then let's get rid of this. And then we'll execute it from with admin privileges. We don't see it doing anything particularly interesting, if I'm honest with you. We've got the process here running in high integrity. I don't see anything going on from kind of like a process point of view at this moment in time. And I think actually what it does is just injects into the terminal services processes and just sits there. So it's a fairly generic Trojan of little interest, and we won't spend any further time analyzing it. But yes, suffice to say, the reason for this video was to show you the really interesting technique that the PowerPoint slide used in order to invoke PowerShell to download the malicious content, and then also the techniques that you can use to decode JSE files and then obviously deobfuscate the malicious content as well to extract the key indicators. So hopefully you found that useful, and more videos to follow as well. Thanks, guys.